All right, let's talk about the northern flicker. Common flickers are fairly large woodpeckers with wingspans up to 20 inches and body lengths of 8 to 10 inches, easily identified by spotted breasts with a black band high up on the breast, brown backs, and bright red on the nape of the neck. Or in the case of the species that live here in the east, that's going to be black on the nape of the neck. Only males have a black mustache across their cheek. Another distinct field mark is their white rump patch and yellow underwings displayed when they take flight. Also known as the yellow shafted flicker, the name refers to the color of the main stem of their feathers. Boys and girls, let's go ahead and zoom in on that beautiful flicker. All right, we'll take a look at the male first. We can see that black arrow is pointing to that very handsome black mustache that the male is sporting. We can see a little red patch on the back of his head. We can see that black nape on his neck. When I say nape, I'm referring to that area that if he had a bib on, that's the area it would be covering. And then let's go ahead and look down. There are those gorgeous yellow feathers. And when they extend all these feathers, they are a magnificent looking bird. So that's our male. Here's our female. She does not have a mustache. She does, however, boys and girls, have a red patch on the back of her head. It's a little bit smaller than the red patch on the male. We cannot see it in this picture. I do apologize for that, but she does have that red patch. And if we zoom in close to her, look at those gorgeous climbing feet. 2 feet forward, 2 feet back. Look how tightly she's clinging on the side of that tree. That it looks like an old tree, maybe some disease or something like that, but she is clinging right to it. And she is a beautiful bird. Look at that gorgeous chiseled beak. And we can see a little bit of that black nape on her neck, kind of like that bib I was talking about. All right, yellow shafts on the flicker's primary wings. So go ahead and look at that. Remember, the primary wings are our fingers. If we were to stretch our arms all the way out, our fingers would be the primary wings on the bird. And we can see those yellow shafts. Beautiful, beautiful color. This, boys and girls, is a male. And once again, I know that because he's got that black mustache. And we can see that red patch on the back of his head quite well. Here's a closer look at the northern flicker's primary wings, the fingers, and we can see that very distinct yellow going right up the middle, right on the shaft of those feathers. And let's take one more look. Here's our male and female. We can see the beautiful yellow tail feathers on both of them. And good news, we can see that red patch on both the male and the female's back of their heads. The black nape or black bib that they're both wearing. And of course, the male is proudly displaying his black mustache. Beautiful, beautiful woodpeckers. I don't think they look like the typical woodpecker, but I sure do love them. Flickers feed often from the ground. Ants are a favorite food, and flickers have specialized saliva that neutralizes the formic acid found in ants. Like other woodpeckers, flickers love the berries of poison ivy, helping to spread the plant. They prefer open woodlands, orchards, and yards. So they don't need that mature forest that our pileated woodpecker likes, and they don't need it to be remote. They like the open woodlands, they like orchards and things like that. So they're not looking for those huge trees that probably the pileated is looking for. A little bit different. And their favorite food is ants, boys and girls. So we can see that this flicker, this young man, is standing there on the ground, and he's probably taking that chisel beak and he's probably chiseling into the soil looking for some ants. Favorite food. Not all birds have the ability to neutralize the formic acid in ants, so many bird species will not touch ants, but there are some woodpecker species that do have that ability to neutralize it, and so they do enjoy ants. And the northern flicker happens to be one of them. And there we go. If we ever wanted to find out why we find poison ivy in lots of places, turns out our woodpeckers like the berries of poison ivy. Goodness gracious. So we know how that gets spread. All right, let's continue on. It takes a flicker up to 2 weeks to dig a cavity from 2 to 6 feet, 60 feet off the ground. Up to 10 eggs are laid on wood chips at the base of the cavity and incubated for about 12 days before hatching. Their call is a flick or flicker or shrill descending "Eeew." Boy, that was pretty poor. But you know what? I have to admit, I love trying to sound these things out. I think I should probably have you boys and girls do that for me as well. All right, let's take a look at this first picture on the left. That is a daddy feeding his young. I know that's a daddy, and you know it's a daddy because it has a black mustache. All right, and if I zoom in on these little guys, I am 100% sure I'm looking at a black mustache on 2 of these. On that third one, I cannot tell if there's a black mustache. The one on the top, the baby on the top, I almost feel like they're, I don't know, it could be, and part of me feels like it might not be. Very hard to tell. But they all have those red marks on the back of their head, which is true for both males and females. And look at those climbing feet, boys and girls. It almost looks as though he's not even standing on one of those feet. So they are doing a fantastic job at helping him brace and helping him maintain that typical woodpecker posture against the side of the tree. All right, and boys and girls, you hear me repeating that a lot. I repeat about those climbing feet, about the chisel beak. That's because those are all very important in making the woodpecker the woodpecker. And so I like to remind you guys, and that way it kind of sticks with you. I love this top picture because it gives us a great idea of what a woodpecker cavity actually looks like inside. So it's not enough that they chisel through that bark that we first see on a tree, but then they've got to chisel downward. In this case, it could be a foot, it could be 2 feet before they lay all of those little babies. And both the male and the female do the chiseling. It's not just the male, though a lot of our birds that we've seen so far are males. That's not always the case. So it's pretty fascinating to see how they're able to accomplish that. And then this picture on the bottom, what I love about it is, boys and girls, this is though you've stuck your head into the cavity opening, which we know we can't because they're quite tiny. But if we could stick our head in and look straight down, this is what we would be looking at. So there, of course, is a beautiful soft bed of wood chips down the bottom. It only stands to reason that's what's going to be there. And there are those wonderful eggs. And imagine they're going to be little hatchlings in 12 days. Very quick from the time they're laid. All right, here is a male and a female flicker. And once again, boys and girls, I think they're absolutely striking. All right, there's our male friend. Look at that black mustache. He is so proud of it. A little bit of red on the back of the neck. There's that black bib or nape that we talk about, and that chisel beak. It's just a solid beak. It's sharp at the end. It looks like it can handle a lot of banging back and forth. And while I'm thinking of it, remember, boys and girls, woodpeckers have that spongy material that wraps around their skull. So when they are consistently excavating and kind of acting like a hammer with that head, that chisel beak going back and forth and back and forth, luckily that spongy material is holding their skull in place so they don't suffer from brain damage or anything. They're well protected. And that is always good news. We can see that he's a little bit perched. It's more of an unusual stance in the case of woodpeckers. They can perch, they just don't perch on a regular basis. Beautiful yellowtail feathers. And here's our friend, the female. We can see that she is really using those climbing feet to hold herself braced against the side of a tree. And it's actually very impressive, boys and girls, because if I zoom in on that tree, that is not rough bark. So that shows you how very strong and capable those climbing feet are of holding those woodpeckers right in place, because she doesn't have extra bark to cling to, and yet she's being very, very successful with that. And we can see all those spots on the chest. We can't see her red patch on the back of her head, but it is there. We can see her chisel beak, and of course the black nape or bib on her chest. All right. Let's go ahead and take a quick walk around our northern flicker. Let's begin with that long, sharp, chisel beak, barbed tongue. Let's not forget that very long barbed tongue that wraps all the way around their skull. In the case of the flicker, it's sticky. It is perfect for picking up ants, the flicker's favorite food. Let's follow down, red on the back of the neck, and this appears on both the males and the females. Despite the pictures I've shown you, I promise you both males and females have that red patch. They are large brown woodpeckers with dark stripes or bars, and they're on their back and a spotted, lighter belly. The wingtips are yellow. They have long, strong, stiff tail feathers. They have 2 forward-facing toes and 2 backward-facing toes. We call those climbing feet, 2 forward, 2 back, and zoom in. There they are. They make the shape of the letter X, and they work fantastically at maintaining that woodpecker posture up against the side of a tree. Both male and female have a black chest patch and red or black cheek patch on the males only. And I called it a cheek patch there, but I really like the idea of calling it a mustache. All right, and on the East Coast, we're more likely to see that black mustache. Very handsome looking man. All right. And lastly, our friend the downy woodpecker. When you talk about the downy woodpecker, boys and girls, because the downy and the hairy woodpecker look so much alike, generally the two are spoken about together. So both the hairy woodpecker and downy woodpecker are almost identical in appearance, with a white stripe down the center of their backs, black wings flecked with white, and white feathers on the outer edges of the tails and white breasts. Like most woodpeckers, males and females are similar in appearance, but only the males have a small red patch on the back of their heads. All right, so unlike the northern flicker, where both the male and the female had that red patch on the back of their heads, in the case of the downy and the hairy, if you see a red patch, you're looking at a male. So unlike the ducks, where we see a very different color scheme for males and females, when it comes to woodpeckers, the difference is subtle. It's not quite as obvious as what we can see when we're looking at ducks. All right. And part of that, boys and girls, let me take a step back. You know, ducks spend a lot of their time on the ground. So it's very important for the females, especially when it comes nesting time, to be able to blend in with their surroundings where they're in such a vulnerable spot, you know, nesting on the ground. Although, remember, our hooded merganser loves a tree cavity. But those neutral colors are very important for the females, and less so when the bird is actually in a tree. All right, let's see. So how do you tell the difference between a hairy and a downy? The hairy's bill is noticeably larger than the downy's. And the hairy's outer tail feathers are solid black, while the downy's are barred with black. The downy woodpecker is slightly smaller overall than the hairy woodpecker. They are both our smallest woodpeckers at about 6 inches long, with a wingspan of about 11 inches. After breeding, 3 to 6 eggs are placed in the base of a cavity as high as 50 feet up in a tree. Like all woodpeckers, they forage for wood-borer larvae, moths, beetles, ants, aphids, spiders, poison ivy and dogwood fruits, berries, corn, apples, and acorns. So you can see they've got a large variety, and they would be considered omnivores because they like their larvae, their moths, their beetles, their ants, but they also like their fruits. And, you know, thankfully they love those berries on poison ivy so they can spread poison ivy around. I don't know if any of you boys and girls get poison ivy. It is not fun. I have had it a few times. It's very, very itchy, and I hope that none of you have to deal with that. Not a fun thing. So let me zoom in. I don't have a walk around for the downy woodpecker. They really didn't give us a lot of information about them, but I would like to zoom in on this picture. And we'll take a look at that hairy and downy. Once again, the downy on the left-hand side is our study species. And if we look very, very close at that downy, if we look at the base of the beak that is right against the face, look at all those coarse feathers. The downy has both the downy and the hairy have quite a bit of coarse feathers at the base of that beak to protect those eyes, which is really wonderful. So they talked about the hairy woodpecker having a very long chisel beak, and his beak is probably about as wide as we could take that beak. It's about as wide as his head. That's the best comparison I can do there. And if you look at our downy, look at how much smaller his beak is. His beak is as wide as maybe half his head. So there's a big difference there. That would be the easiest way, because as you're looking at both of them, boys and girls, you can see they are very difficult to distinguish, other than if you are looking at their beaks. That's the most obvious. Let's zoom in. Let's take a look at those amazing climbing feet. 2 toes forward, 2 toes back. Look at those very sharp, long talons. In the case of these guys, pretty impressive. And that holds them stiffly in place. And because they're smaller birds, we might be more apt to see them do a little more perching than, say, the pileated woodpecker, being such a large bird. But also, like all woodpeckers, as we look at the downy, they are in that posture, that woodpecker posture we refer to when they are braced against the side of a tree. And we can see in this case that downy has begun excavating a cavity. Pretty awesome picture there. All right, boys and girls, well, that is it for our 3 study species. That was the pileated woodpecker, largest woodpecker here in Pennsylvania and in the United States. We studied about the beautiful northern flicker that has those yellow shafted tail feathers, and the male has that very distinguishing black mustache. And then we talked about our downy woodpecker, which is the smallest one that we have here in Pennsylvania. I hope you boys and girls enjoyed learning about the woodpecker. Keep in mind, long tongues. They all have those very long tongues that wrap around their skulls. So in addition to that chiseled beak and those climbing feet, those strong tail feathers, they have that very unique tongue. All right, boys and girls, that is it for the woodpeckers. I can't wait to see you all in class. Yes, bye. Take care.